Hello humans, I'm angry. And the more I talk about AI, the more I get angry. Seriously, what is going on? I can see around me a lot of people in the art world already struggling because people are not willing to pay them anymore when they can just ask an AI to do the same work. The danger is real. And the fairy tale of the big tech companies that AI will make people work less for the same payment is just bullshit. Excuse my words. One side of me just loves what is possible right now with AI in the music. Amazing. It is the reason why I do this podcast. The other side, a couple of weeks ago, Suno posted,
"We are very excited to announce that throughout the remainder of 2024, we will be paying a total of $1 million to these creators who are bringing us closer to music and each other with Suno. We are kicking things off with the Summer of Suno, a celebration of the songs that move us as a community, whether they make us bob our heads, tap our feet, laugh, cry, or simply say wow."
Seriously? You are paying the artists who use the music you have stolen from millions of other artists before paying the artists you have stolen from? I would love to play Ironic now from Alanis Morissette here, but I don't have the rights, so you will hear me sing maybe the only time in the Illiac Suite. Isn't it ironic? Let's get this episode started.
This is the Illiac Suite, a podcast on AI-driven music. Join me as we dive into the ever-evolving world of AI and music, where algorithms become the composers and machines become the virtuosos. Yes, this music and text was written by a computer, and I am not real, but
I am, and my name is Dennis Kastrup. A lot of things are happening these days again in the field of generative AI. Suno and Udio have announced their audio-to-audio tools. The web was flooded with videos of that. Universal Music just announced that they will work together with SoundLab. SoundLab can create then a clone of the voices in their roster, and then the artists can decide what they can do with this or what they want to do with this. Sounds a lot like Voice Swap, a platform that also has AI cloned voices, and you can use a voice to create some other music, and you have to pay for this. If you want to know more about this, you can listen to episode 7 here in the Illiac Suite, because I already talked about this, and what Voice Swap did is kind of the same thing, I think, what Universal Music does, and it goes always like this. The little platforms do it first, and then the big one take the ideas. And then there is, of course, the video production. Dream Machine from ElevenLabs or Kling. People are just amazed and amazed and amazed and amazed how great that is. Memes which were taken as photos from real life become now real again. Same with album covers. I've seen some really funny album covers from Nirvana, from Pink Floyd. It's really great. So, photos become real again. So photos taken out of reality become real again. Full circle, I would say. But we will not talk about videos today. By the way, a little bit. Have you seen the first ever fully created video with an AI for the band Washed Out? Go have a look, because Washed Out is also one of my favorite bands. Yes, it's fine. Song is fine. But I would say room for improvement. Okay, what to expect today in the Illiac Suite. A couple of weeks ago, I talked to my friend Matthias, who is, by the way, running Music Tech Germany, an organization that takes care, as the name says, of companies that work with music and new technologies. Check it out, Music Tech Germany. He told me there is an AI platform called Delphos. It is amazing because it does what we have been talking about before, so Matthias and I. One day, each one of us will have his or her personal AI with which we can create music in our style, and we do not have to infringe copyrights because it is only trained on your own music. I thought instantly, I have to talk to the person behind that platform. I want to know more. So meet Ilya Tolchinov.
I'm the CEO and co-founder of Delphos Music, which is a AI music platform that is based in London. By training, at one point I was a mathematician, and I thought I'd actually go into that in academia and do all that kind of stuff. But then I decided I would go and be a musician. and I worked as a singer for a while. I played different instruments as well, but singing became like the thing I was really passionate about. And I've worked across church choirs across the UK. And then I started developing music tech with my co-founder, who is my dad, Roman. And we first built like a small app that could generate sheet music. Because we've always had this idea of being able to sculpt music with almost with your hands, not have to put notes on a page, note by note, and get lost in the kind of tedium of that. So we were always focused on ways of making music more intuitive and allow people to concentrate on creativity. We started Delphos in 2021, and the idea was actually quite loose to begin with. We wanted to create a set of tools so anyone could create music. But that developed quite quickly into a generative product because we could see just how excited people were about customizing the music they make and the music they listen to. We saw that with Web3. So not necessarily the things that really got people into Web3, like the economics and the speculation and the potential payday at the end of it. We just really liked how when people got attached to a project, they really wanted to customize it and see that customization at scale. And we thought this needs to happen with music. And around this time, by coincidence, other people were really, really starting to come out with very big AI music projects. There'd been companies before that, of course, but now was when like the really bigger companies were starting to release their own models.
I've mentioned this before here quite often. What sticks out with a lot of founders of music AI platforms is the fact that they all share a deep love for music. Same with Ilya and his partner, his father. It is a family business, a family affair. When all these new platforms emerged, the two saw the need for something else, also having in mind that people were a bit afraid of what was coming.
We know that music has a uniquely human element, and there will be people who say everything will be replaced by virtual artists, etc. There are a lot of worries about that with each stage of technology. When the radio became a thing, like how are we going to enjoy music if it's just coming out of a wireless and not in real life? And then when sampling became a thing, and when a lot of electronic music became a thing, it was weird for people. And I think it's the same thing with AI. But we set out to do this thing where a single musician can have their own model that's just theirs. They train it on just their own music. And once it's trained, it can output new music in their style. And that's all it does. It doesn't learn someone else's style or use someone else's style. It only uses your music and it only sounds like you. Because number one, people could use that in their own music making, and instead of, when they're starting a new track, instead of writing everything note by note again, they could have the core elements of that track already written in a way they would have already written it. But more excitingly, they can put this to work in an automated way. So if you make a Soundworld, which is what we call these models, a Soundworld, and in the kind of pre-AI days, I said to you, hi Dennis, I want you to write me a bass line. You'd say, okay, sure. Here's an invoice, and wait a week and I'll get it to you. The idea is, once you have your Soundworld up, I can prompt it myself, ask for a bass line with my restraints. So my BPM, my tempo, my chord progression, my key, my song structure, and will generate from your Soundworld exactly as you write it. You get paid and you didn't have to do anything. And what we've been building for the last almost 3 years has been this platform where musicians, producers, catalogs can create these models based on just their music and share it with other people, so people can create their own new compositions using musical material from producers and composers they love already.
I love the idea. Ilya mentioned it quickly, the Soundworld. Let's get into that a little bit more.
A Soundworld is a private music AI generator that writes music in one particular style. So it's a fully trained model that comes from a single artist or a single group of music. Now, what it does is it allows you to prompt exact things from it. So if you make a Soundworld, anybody on the planet that you give access to could say to it, write me 8 bars of this music at 120 beats per minute, and I want it to have the chord progression G, E minor, A minor, D in the key of G. And these are the instrumentation options from the Soundworld that I want to use. So knowing all of that knowledge that is gleaned from the original composer, it will write you exactly what you asked for, those 8 bars.
So if you sum it up, Delphos is offering special skills that only you are capable of doing. And in this case, for example, producing songs. But it is like having many hands or brains at the same time. So Delphos offers your skills to a lot of people, maybe 100 or 1,000 people at the same time. Normally, you could do this at once because you're not able to do this. But instead, someone says now, all right, Delphos says, then we just take your work skills and use them. And Delphos takes care that you get paid for each user that uses your skills. And you also have the control of the data which is used to train the models. Sounds great to me.
Music is unlike other data. And it has so many more different cross sections than you usually get in like large data sets. There's like say in the world of jazz, there's 1 million people who would do this particular subgenre of jazz, but even within them, there's something that makes Donald Lambert him, and Art Tatum him, and Fats Waller. And being able to capture that, being able to understand that, like, musicality and composition kind of need to be at the heart of it when you start building these things. Otherwise, you're kind of stabbing around sort of in the dark, trying to see if this model or this particular algorithm will hit it. With a music product, it's very, very important that the people designing it have a very clear vision of how it's going to be used. And oftentimes that comes from them actually having a real use case for it. So can they themselves imagine opening up their own program and solving a problem that they have? That's not necessarily what you need. So if you just understand that market very well, but you might not need the product yourself, it doesn't mean you can't build like a fantastic business with it. But with such a new technology where, you know, the ability to generate new music gives you unlimited scope to create whatever you want. You can create new hit records. You can dilute someone's catalog. You can totally disrupt the samples industry. You can create educational products. There's so many things you could do with that. I think it's very important for people to come into creating it already knowing where that's going.
By the way, all the music you're listening in this episode of the Illiac Suite comes from Delphos, from their Soundworlds. Thanks, Ilya, for giving me some examples of your music. Let's say I want to be part of Delphos, and I am a musician. For training big models, millions of songs are used from many different genres and musicians and bands. What do I have to feed the AI with so that a satisfying result comes out?
So the Soundworld product at the moment is an enterprise product. And to train it, you need MIDI. So there are ways. So if you have the stems for a set of works, you can use the stems to train it. But the core functionality behind it is MIDI. So you would feed in. So you would analyze like a set of tracks that you need. So maybe between 50 and 100 tracks in a particular style that you own the rights to. And that's a very interesting topic in AI at the moment, what you use to train a sound world. So 50 to 100 tracks would make a very good sound world, and you feed in the stems to a sound world, and you say, here are the bass stems, here are the drum stems, here are melodic stems, here are harmony stems, here are effects stems. And from that moment on, the sound world learns how you write the melodies, how you harmonize things, how you write bass lines, what you do rhythmically, so that when you run the sound world with new constraints, it can stick to your style while creating something completely new.
What is interesting with this approach, not a full song is used for training, but the different stems of it. For me, that makes actually sense, because like this, your different skills can be trained better. It's more clear. It is not the whole mix of everything, but the clear sound of each stem.
Our starting hypothesis was precisely, how do you create something that a single person can train? When you have a million tracks, say even if they're all in the same genre, when you create a very large model from it, you're averaging out over the musicality of whatever makes that style, and you start to lose certain things. And that's when you get music that doesn't quite sound authentic to that original, to what you're going for. But there's an even bigger problem. That requires a huge amount of different writers, because no human being can just write you a million tracks. So a million tracks will have thousands of different creators, tens of thousands of creators. You lose any sense of copyright ownership through that, because it's all put into this black box. You don't know exactly how it works. You don't know which data item influenced that particular thing. I know there are companies that are working on this at the moment, but there is no, just due to just how complex these models are, it's so difficult to find who's responsible for this particular thing. So for those reasons, we decided to take like a much more difficult road and come up with a totally new model that would allow you to do precisely this. This actually brings me to kind of the real motivation for it. One of the scariest things about AI systems is that it takes agency away from the original musical creators. So people are talking about, are these things going to replace musicians and producers? Is it going to steal their jobs? Is it going to dilute their copyright? Are they going to lose revenues from it? And people are finding really like very interesting solutions to these things. Like there are these wonderful certification programs that are coming out now. There is a lot of talk of licensing, training data, all the rest of it. And I think that's like a very, very good thing to do. The fact that some people are having the very conversation of, do we reimburse music creators for using that thing to build a product that's obviously competitive with them? That's crazy that there's still a conversation around that. But I think we need to take that a step further and actually give the original creators of the music the agency to control over how the AI works. Because if you're a musician, you sign an agreement and you get paid some amount of money, and a company trains on your work. Yes, that's probably very fair. But if at a certain point you say, I don't want my music to be further diluted by AI, I want out of this thing, there is no kind of solution for that. You can't just go to, I don't know, like especially the larger models and say, hey, can you untrain my music out of this because I'm done. There's no GDPR for training, and you know how long it took to get the EU to do something about data. With AI, it's going to be, and by that point, all the models will exist, everyone will be diluted, etc. So from that perspective, what we wanted was for somebody to not have to opt in or opt out of something, but they create their own model. They become the official source for their music. And if at any point they want to say, my music, my generative music, won't be used in this particular application, or maybe at all, they can just disable their Soundworld or delete it entirely. And that's like a very central principle of what we do.
Total control stays with the musicians. I love it. Let's get started now. And I gave an example, and I was a little bit optimistic with Ilya. I said Bob Dylan and Adele would have their own sound worlds. How would that work?
You're creating a track, you're a producer, you're sort of in the studio, and you want Bob Dylan to write like the guitar parts, and the Adele sound world to generate like some very ballady, piano-y things. Because sound worlds are designed to be able to take like very explicit instructions. So you can absolutely make them work together. We're actually developing tech as well to make these elements like play much nicer with each other, so that it becomes like a very natural sounding composition. But again, that's the kind of exciting thing for catalog owners who want to sort of, you know, big time customization. User generated content has been proven to be like a really huge revenue driver in the space. And if they're able to facilitate fully cleared for distribution collaborations like that without actually having to bother Bob Dylan or Adele, I mean, everybody wins, and no one's copyright gets infringed, more copyright gets created, and everything's done faster.
Everybody wins until the moment of creation. But the songs have to be licensed then. Who gets the copyrights?
So we have two sides to this. There's one side where people who make sound worlds monetize their AI on their own, and then there's the side where we monetize it. For people who choose to monetize on their own, we have software licensing. So people can license sound worlds, they can train, retrain them as much as they like, and create music with them. And they can literally just use it to create more catalog. So, you know, they license Soundworld, they pay per use. So if they want to write 1 million new tracks, they pay for 1 million new tracks using the API. But this same API can be plugged into products. And unfortunately, I can't speak right now about some of these products, but there are some extremely cool things that are going to be released over the summer and into Q3 of this year of people who've made their own generators, so that are very, very specific to their sound. Some of these are so high quality that like it's actually quite crazy how authentic they sound. But you know, you would go to somebody who typically just releases music and just use their generator straight from them. So our models there like are kind of a typical SaaS model with some strategic partnerships. There are revenue sharing kind of things as well, which I think like in an emerging industry like AI music is quite important that good players who are on the right side of protecting artist rights and everything work together on making an economy that works for the artists and for the end users. Then on the other side, we're working on a series of products that come from Delphos directly for end users. So we are working on a standalone app that functions very similar to VST, so people can publish their Soundworld onto this app, and then anybody will be able to access it and generate music in their DAW. So the app itself will be free, and we'll have some of our own Delphos native models on there, so people can generate, you know, whatever they need to. But then we'll start to have branded Soundworlds. So if a label releases a Soundworld, so for example, and we've had this with some labels where their business model doesn't allow them necessarily to create like software product. Like they focus on more traditional ways of making music, but they have really, really cool music, really cool data that can be leveraged. So that's us monetizing it. So we'd say, just give us your data, we'll spin up this model at no charge, and we'll deploy this. So we're working on a few integrations with DAWs at the moment, which is very cool, because then all of the users of those DAWs would be able to get, for example, their Bob Dylan Soundworld, and then Bob Dylan's old stems are generating kind of new revenue that just didn't exist before, and the artist is cut into that revenue.
One thing that is an ongoing problem, or let's say issue these days, is the fact that platforms have to face the risks of people using AI-generated songs so they can pretend to be a real musician. They can generate something and say, well, that's me, I'm a musician. Spotify knows what I'm talking about, but there might also be a problem of people pretending to be a musician they are not. I mean, I could, for example, upload music from someone else, so I could pretend to be someone else.
Anything that involves user-generated content runs that risk of people, getting a Soundworld and then training it on Adele's music when they're not Adele themselves. There are because they're still inputting music, there's a lot of anti-copyright infringement that can be done with that. I think what would actually be even better, and this is a project we've been working on internally for a while, and we've been keeping it under wraps. We're probably going to launch it at the same time as our wider release, is a way for people to self-certify that the way they've trained their own personal Soundworld has been ethical. So it's come from their own music. And the way you need to do that is people need to be able to show their own data set that they use without giving it away, and for anybody to be able to go in and check it. That's the kind of antithesis to kind of certification programs, which I think are very, very necessary, but the more people get certified on a particular program, the more risk there is, because the next person who kind of comes in and somehow slips through the cracks, they end up screwing everyone else who's already on it. And there's so much more pressure on the certification program to do this. Although I know that's a whole debate, and I don't want to open a whole can of worms on that. But I think ultimately people need to be able to publicly stake their thing, because at the end of the day, if you put up an Adele song illegally on Spotify, because it's come from you through the distributor, you can be hunted down and made to pay for that. With Soundworlds, there's the exact same thing. So there's a lot of reporting that we built into the system. So if, for example, you make a Dennis Soundworld and you say, actually, this isn't going to be royalty free, this is going to be a very royalty not free Soundworld, and I generate something from it in my DAW, you will know through the system on your dashboard that I, Ilya, generated this exact bit of music from your Soundworld at this point. So if I then go off and have a hit record and it sounds like that, you have like timestamped evidence to say, yep, no, Ilya owes me a bunch of money, which is words I never want to hear.
Well, as I'm not really a good musician, or to say it better and honestly, I'm not a musician at all. I cannot play an instrument. Well, I used to play when I was younger, but I just quit. That's just between you and me. So I am not a musician. Don't worry, Ilya, you cannot take my music and make a hit with it. On the other side, in times of AI, am I considered a musician if I generate stuff and, let's say, use a DAW to mix the stems I have generated? Maybe in the future, questions will come up: at what point are you a musician? I would agree that prompting something and let an AI sing for you is not enough. Or is it? Maybe? Maybe you write good lyrics. But let's imagine I created some stems and just put them together and use an AI voice to sing it. Am I a musician? What will define a musician? Maybe the same question exists when it comes to drum machine and autotune. Are you a drummer and singer when you use those two things? Let me know what you think. You can always write me an email to mail@denniskastrup.com, mail@denniskastrup.com. My contact details will also be in the notes to this episode. Also, all the information and links from Delphos, whose users are, by the way.
Our users are very predominantly professional users. So we have a few record labels using this for production, for remixing. We have music creation platforms integrating together with the API. And we have some catalogs that are building new catalog using it. So yes, this is very much aimed at the professional market.
That question answered makes me think of one unanswered one. Remember in the beginning of this episode when Ilya said he and his father are running Delphos? Alright, Ilya, how do you two work with each other? How is it working?
I've always, my entire life, I've called him by his first name. Not because of any relationship thing, it's just he's just been Roman all the time. But everyone at work calls him my dad, except me. No, it's wonderful. If you have the right priorities working with a family member, it's the best thing on the planet because he's not gonna fuck you over at any point. Your interests are above anything else.
That was it. The new episode of the Illiac Suite. And while I'm talking, the world of AI is turning fast again. New stories on the horizon, new platforms appearing, new problems creating. If you want to stay updated, tune in this little podcast. Thanks, Ilya, for talking to me. Thank you also, Delphos, for giving me all the music of this episode. Thanks for listening, humans. Take care and behave.